Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining on. Um, oop. so yeah, just sorry for my quick little break. Give me one moment. Okay. And thank you all for joining us today with K2 Systems, formerly known as Everest Solar Systems. And in this webinar, we will be going over their latest tile roof product line, along with an overview of some of the other products. I'm Maxine Raffet, the marketing manager here at Krannich Solar USA. And before diving into the webinar, I just wanted to make sure everybody got a quick overview of Krannich Solar, especially for those that may not be familiar with our company. And if at any point you have any questions, please feel free to leave that in the chat box and we will get back to you with an answer as soon as possible. So Krannich Solar is headquartered in Germany and was founded by Kurt Krannich. Since being founded, Krannich has expanded into 23 different countries with the capability to ship to over 100 countries. Krannich Solar has been a strong partner to PV installers since 1995 and offers everything that is required to begin and finish your solar installation. Our international purchasing power helped us build strong relationships with your favorite manufacturers, such as K2 Systems, to secure the best pricing and availability. With a growing market share, Krannich Solar is a privately owned and self-financed company that ranks among the leading solar wholesalers worldwide. Our experience in delivering solar products worldwide for the last 26 years has made us experts in our field. In 2005, Krannich expanded into the US with two main branches, one in California and one in New Jersey. Since then, we have expanded throughout the US even further, and more recently opened up our warehouses in Joliet, Illinois and Sacramento, California. We are growing every day, so definitely keep an eye out for where our next warehouse may pop up. And our warehouses service throughout the United States, the contiguous 48 states, including the Caribbean, Puerto Rico, parts of Canada, parts of South America, and nearby countries. Throughout the years, we have grown our product portfolio to provide over 5,000 products, and we have partnered with leading manufacturers worldwide to offer the best material for any project size. Whether it's an off-grid system, a 4-panel shingled roof, or a megawatt roof, flat roof project, we have the material for you. These are just a few of the modules that we are currently offering for both residential and commercial systems. And then some of our inverters offerings that we have, including microinverters, commercial string inverters, residential string inverters, and most of them with storage capability as well. Of course, our mounting systems, where the most important one is K2 Systems, offering probably the most types of solutions for any solar installation project. And even here on the screen, you'll see their flat roof system, a solution for a tile roof system, and their ground mount system. And of course, we also offer storage systems, and these are just a few of the ones that we currently have in stock and are offering for both off-grid and grid-tied. Now, working with Krannich means you'll never have to work alone. With our streamlined ordering process, each customer at Krannich will receive a dedicated sales rep to walk them through each step of the ordering process, from project design to on-site delivery. That also includes our online shop. All customers can have access to our entire product range with lead times and availability from the comfort of their desk. This shop is accessible 24/7 and is preloaded with your customized pricing to save you some time in the ordering process. Online shop users also have access to exclusive promotions available only through the shop. And if you don't already have an account, visit our website to register or email me after this webinar to get started. We also have partnered with leading financing companies throughout the US to continue support all phases of your project. When you're ready to order, just let your Krannich sales representative know that you need financing, and they will get in touch with a program that is best suited for your needs. Whether it's a residential project or a large commercial project, we have the needs for you. Since the solar industry is always innovating and changing, at Krannich Solar, we do our best to make sure you know all about the latest products and technologies. We team up with industry leaders such as K2 Systems and seasoned professionals such as Johan to train you firsthand on everything you need to know, and it will always be for free. In case you didn't know, most of our webinars are NABCEP certified as well, so if you're ever looking for those, definitely reach out to us to see when you can join us next for another NABCEP certified webinar. So this concludes my portion of the webinar, and on our screen, you'll see our contact information at Krannich Solar if you ever need to reach out. Here's our both East Coast office in New Jersey and West Coast office in California. That'll be servicing throughout the Americas. Once again, feel free to reach out and put any questions you may have in the chat box. And now I'm going to go ahead and pass it along to Johan with K2 Systems.
All right. Thank you, May. Thanks for having us. Again, my name is Johan. I'm going to show my screen here. It's hopefully the presentation there. I got two screens going, so I'm just making sure. There we go. So I imagine we're full screen to there. And I do have my camera on, so we can show parts and pieces as we go along. So I'll just start with the slides. Introduce myself. So again, my name is Johan Alfson. I'm the Senior Director of Product Marketing at K2. I started in the end of 2018. I joined what was then Everest, now K2. I'll explain that name change in a minute. And I started as a solar installer, so I come from that background, from a technical background, being on many different roofs over the years. That was back in 2004. So, and I worked for a couple different manufacturers, working on product development, technical training, marketing, and I'm doing the same today with K2, primarily focusing on the technical marketing, technical training, as well as product development with our engineers. So, but this is my favorite part, is working with installers and showing different product features and doing technical trainings on not only mounting systems, but some of the roofing that comes involved with installing these products. So our agenda for the day is going to be, we'll go over a little bit of K2 and how we developed, where we come from. Similar background as Krannich, and we also will talk about some roofing basics. So as we get into roof attachments, we'll talk about the different roof types, like composition, asphalt, shingle, tile roofs, which is going to be a big focus since we're coming out with a lot of new products in the next couple weeks. Metal roofs as well. We'll briefly go over some low slope, aka flat roofs, but we probably won't have enough time because we're getting into a lot of things. And with all of that, we will get into the CrossRail system as it applies to dual rail, shared rail, as well as our tilt-up system, our ground mount system, as mentioned before, and all the components that are universal across those platforms. And then I'll leave a little time at the end if there's any questions, and we can go over that. If you have any questions, you can always type them in, and we'll go over all of them. So feel free to type in any questions that come up as we're going. So a brief introduction to the company and some of our team members. Ross and Brett are our management team on the sales side. So they're working on strategy for the country in the U.S. And business development as well, as we're growing quite a bit. And our outside sales team, some of you might know as well, we've got Al on the East Coast, Brad in the Midwest, Nick Pack in the Northwest, Mark Jubinville, he's based out of Texas, and we brought on John Riddle not too long ago, who's in Southern California. So, and we're growing quite a bit. So these are our outside sales reps that you will work with if you're looking for product, or if you're trying to find a specific part number. They're out in the field quite often and very responsive. So there's their contact info. If you haven't met your local rep, it's good to get in touch with them. We also have our inside sales team that supports them as well, and our customers. So getting to the name change, if you haven't seen, we've moved over to the K2 logo, and we've always been K2. So K2 started in 2004 in Germany and opened up shops in Italy, France, the UK, and then in 2012 we opened in the US, and 2015 in Mexico. And basically the name K2 was not available at the time, so we went with the next biggest mountain, and we were Everest for many years. And now that name has become available, and we're all one big happy family under the K2 Systems name. So you're seeing that brand change now this year. So we're excited about that. And the reason I bring that up is because some folks don't know that we have so many locations worldwide. As I mentioned, we're all over Europe and starting to break into South America. We're in Brazil. We recently just opened a couple years ago in Brazil, we just opened this year in Australia, but not too long ago was Brazil and South Africa. But this year was Australia. That was an exciting branch to open. So the significance of this is basically that we have installs all over the world, and roofs also vary. I mean, obviously vary in the US as well as the world. You know, some common roofs with metal and some tile, some flat roofs, but on the residential side, they vary quite a bit just in the US alone. So what this does is gives us so much experience with different roof types and different approaches and different products. So we're allowed to use that international knowledge and work with products that have worked well in different areas and climates and roof types. So the CrossRail is our basis for all of our installations, and we have different rail profiles. Here you can see the 44X, 48X, 48XL, and CrossRail 80. We introduced 44 last year, and while it does look like a light rail, it's not. It's lighter in weight, but it's not actually just a light rail. A lot of times light rail systems are specifically for Southern California, Arizona, areas with a lot of solar going on, but not heavy snow loads, if any at all. But the 44X CrossRail system is allowed to be installed in various snow country as well. So it's not, we don't call it a light rail. It's a pretty versatile system, and the numbering that goes along with it, if you look at that black and white image there on the screen, that is basically the size of the profile. So if you're looking at the camera here, it's basically the size of this profile here. So this is our 44, and so we've taken out some of the material and we've optimized the size and the profile so that it can take the majority of the US's regional areas where solar is very popular. So we do have this on the East Coast. We do have it in places like Florida. It just depends on snow, wind, the design, where on the roof it's going to be. And you can use our base tool to see which one is best. And if it makes sense, you can swap out 44 and put in 48X or XL if you want, and make it see what spans work out best in your region. So that being said, the roof types can also be selected, and the products for roof attachments, obviously they're going to vary on the different roof types. So the most popular in the entire country in the US is comp shingle, but tile is becoming more and more popular, and metal roofs are obviously popular I wouldn't say, we're based in California here, but not a lot of metal roofs here, but we have a lot of metal roofs in Europe as well as Mexico. And we're seeing a lot of it in the Midwest as well, and areas of snow. Colorado is switching a lot. Colorado is a good example because they're switching a lot from comp shingle roofs to metal roofs, mostly because of hail damage and snow. It's just easier to withstand that kind of environment. So there's a lot of hail that can damage the comp shingles, which is covered in warranties in most cases, and we'll talk about warranties a little bit later. And I have seen tile roofs, mostly flat tile roofs, popping up in areas where there's a lot of snow or hail damage as well. So there's a good variety of these 3 roofs all over the country, and we'll tackle them one by one. So getting into the roofing basics, this is a part of our presentation that is registered with NABCEP for credits. So it goes over some of the roofing as it pertains to solar installers and as it pertains to roof penetrations and roof attachments for these different roof types. So we have a couple different products for each roof type, and we'll go over those one by one. So the common comp shingle roofs that are out there, if you haven't dealt with this much, or maybe you're an expert at this, you'll see that these 3 are the most common shingles out there for comp shingle roofs. Architectural is probably the most common. It's a little bit more of that in between of a not the highest end product and not the cheapest product either. So this, I think, is the more popular one with all the roof manufacturers. It's generically called architectural, but basically it's a tab that has, they're about 3 feet, and there's not a seam in between each tab. The seam is between all the different cuts of the tab. So whereas 3 tab is a cheaper product and is pretty popular out there as well, but I would say it's about a 10, maybe 15-year life product. And those do have seams on every single tab, which is going to determine how you place your flashing and making sure you have it positioned correctly. And we'll go over that when we show our EverFlash system. And then these high definition comp shingles are kind of staggered ears, you could see in the picture there, and they look a little funny, and it's not a straight drip line, so putting in your flashing becomes a little bit more difficult, where you want to have that flashing flush and get into the seams. A lot of times you can actually bend back that ear, which is decorative actually, and if it's preventing your flashing and your mount from getting up higher to where you need to be, you can actually cut that ear off and pull it off and install it like a regular flashing on a straight course line. But so I would say architectural is more of a 20-25 year life product. 3 tabs, 10 to 15. This is, obviously it's regionally based. It's going to go a lot faster where there's harsher environments, like in Las Vegas, it gets really hot. If you're walking on it when it's really hot, it's going to deteriorate a lot faster. And then in snow country, it might, that freeze thaw might deteriorate the lifespan a little bit more. And then the high definition is rated as typically a 50-year lifespan product. So that's all relative, again, to the region and the conditions. So if you ever run into these types and you're not familiar with them, you could always consult with us and see what makes the most sense for which product to select. You're starting to see a lot of newer flashing types or flexible flashing types come into the market that are a little bit easier on some of these roof types. And then I threw in some kind of roofing terminology there at the end. If you're wondering, ridge, underlayment, leak barriers, valley, hips, gables, eaves, things like that. When you call it low slope versus steep slope, the rake on the roof. These are just terms that roofers use a lot. It helps when you're navigating on the roof and trying to determine where your install is going or where your measurements are based off of. So, and then rafters, we'll talk about the different rafter finding methods as we get going. But getting into that, I think this is a really valuable thing. If you're an installer, whether you're seasoned or you're new, this is a really important thing. The solar industry is growing like crazy. We're selling, installing, but really we need to pay attention to the platform that we're installing on. So some companies are really diligent about doing their site visits and making sure that they qualify the roof, but I think it's really, really important to have a checklist and understand what things to look for when you're going to the job site. So whoever's job it is to do that analysis and do that site visit, determine, one, obviously if solar is even feasible on that roof that is hopefully south facing. If you have, obstructions, if you've got, deteriorating roof issues. So I always say, one, treat this kind of like renting a car, and you do that you're going to jot down the damage, the dings and scratches and dents or cracks in the windshield that weren't your liability to begin with, so that were already there, pre-existing damage. So this is really important because solar installers typically get blamed for things they didn't do. So you want to make sure you look at the roof, qualify the roof, and make sure there doesn't need to be any repairs or re-roof situations, which can be lumped into the cost of the system when you're doing rebates, and depends on the city and the state and what the incentives are in that particular region. So but a roof in that area where you're putting PV can typically be a part of the system, because you don't want to put a 25-year life PV or more PV system on top of a roof that is only going to last 5 years, unless you're planning to re-roof, and then that will change what mounting system you want to put in. So qualifying the roof is essential, and try to get as much information on the roof as possible. When was it built? Who built it? When was it re-roofed? If it was re-roofed, how old are the shingles? Who's the manufacturer? Are there any warranties in place? What's the condition of the truss system? I always say to get it, if you're doing a site visit, to go in the attic and determine if there's any, you could see some water intrusion, water stains there in those pictures I'm showing. Damage to the truss. Sometimes the trusses, if they're putting on Christmas lights or something, they jump from one roof to the other. If it's a little step down, they can, 200 plus guy jumping down on a truss could break the truss. So it could happen. So it's something you want to determine and make sure, one, that the roof system is capable of taking the PV you're putting on. The age of the system is going to withstand the age of the roof. So you can see damaged shingles there. They're blistering, cracked, corroded. That happens from, ice damming, freeze and thaw. As I mentioned, hail damage happens. It's pretty common in Colorado. And some of these things can be covered in the warranty. So that's where the warranties come in place. Is the warranty might be long gone, but if the warranty is intact and the roofer did it, you would want to determine where that warranty is and what the roofer is willing to accept, if you're going to take on that warranty or you're going to work with them to maintain their warranty. So as I mentioned, it could be long gone, but it's worth investigating to see if that warranty is in place. And we've gone the distance to make sure our products don't void those warranty and they follow roofing best practices. So the other big point I wanted to make is, if first of all, qualifying the roof, but the other one is getting in touch with a roofer locally that you can establish a relationship with, so that if there are pre-existing damages to the roof, you can go in there and fix them with the roofer if you're not a roofer yourself. So some companies are roofing companies and solar companies. Some companies have a dedicated roofer on staff that does these kind of things, or they have a partnership with the roofing company locally that they can call in. I mean, just think of it, if it was your home. If it was your home and one guy said, yes, we'll install this tomorrow, no problem, we're good to go. And if the other guy quoting you says, I'd love to do this install tomorrow, but we have some roof damage and we need to repair that, and I'll show you what I'm talking about, I would be more inclined to go with the guy who is going to repair the system to create a clean slate and have a nice roof to install solar with, so you don't have to go back ever, hopefully. If it's done right, you shouldn't have to go and do any maintenance aside from if an inverter fails, God forbid, sometimes it happens, a microinverter, or if obviously cleaning the system is probably the only guaranteed maintenance you're gonna have to do. So again, so working on that site visit, depending on what the trends are in your area, what you see, you can create your own kind of checklist and determine all the key things to look for. Work efficiency is something I've been working with a lot of installers. Some crews are very efficient and fast and organized, some not so much. I've seen them from all spectrums. So creating safety zones is obviously important, where you're going to be dropping things off the roof. You want to have the homeowner move their car and not have it in the driveway where your ratchet might fly off the roof and hit their car. So or hit somebody, God forbid. You don't want their kids playing in that area. So safety zones, making sure you're working in stages. This might be just boring stuff that you guys already do, but I've seen some guys really have it down and some guys not. So we're starting to do more trainings on this. If you want more information on this, we are doing more courses on roof efficiency, roof crew efficiency, basically boots on the roof training. So it's stuff that we're finding very valuable. Our customers are finding very valuable, and we're doing these programs for our customers and with our products, how to pack them up, how to take them to the roof, how to store them in your shop, on your truck, so you're not losing parts, and you know how to keep them maintained and replenish your supply. So getting into the flashings, our Everflash, we have a couple different versions, and whether it doesn't matter which flashing you're using, really. It's usually a 12-inch flashing. I think I have one actually right behind the camera screen here. Sorry, grab this. I'm actually in the Vista office, where on the other side of that wall, they're packing up pallets for you guys. So this is our flashing. That's pretty standard. And anytime you have a flashing, it's typically going to be a 12-inch in length. Sometimes they're 12 inches across, sometimes they're 9 inches across, but you're always going to take the flashing and shove it up into the nail line. But sometimes you hit nails here and you have to remove them. The most common mistake I've seen with installers, well, there's two things that cause roof leaks. One is you're putting up the flashing and they hit nails, and then they just install it where it lies. And sometimes that's wrong, because you'll have this drip edge of the flashing covering, overhanging the drip edge of the shingle. So the reason where that can be wrong is, if you look at the screen there, you could say I took just a screenshot right there of step number 4, which is in our assembly guide, our quick guide, and you want that flashing so it's on the first course. Hoping you can see my cursor here on the screen. So you're on the first course, under the second course, and just barely, maybe about a ½ inch or an inch into the third course. And why that's important is, if you get seams here on top of your flashing, and you don't go all the way into that third course, just a hair, then the seam, you can actually see it on that right picture where it has the chalk lines. I'll explain that in a minute here. There's a seam right above that. So if the flashing is ending right there before it gets into the third course, into the nail line, water can get into that seam underneath the flashing and then cause some issues. So that's a big deal, and it can get under the flashing and cause some problems. And the other mistake that happens very often, and it's probably the #1 cause of roof leaks, is missed pilot holes. And so this is me on a roof right here. I was just installing, and I still install either with customers, helping them out, training or showing our products, or sometimes some friends call me just to help them out on the job site. Keeps me fresh, keeps my chops up, so I get on the roof still. This is a picture I took where, I coordinated with the guy coming behind me. I said work in stages. Some guys are finding the rafters, drilling the pilot hole. Sometimes you miss, and it wasn't right where that chalk line was, or they're not aligned, perfectly 24-inch on center or 16-inch on center. They're a little bit off. So if you miss, it's really key to mark which one is the actual hole to go into for the guy coming behind you with all the hardware, and which one to seal up to make sure that that's just a missed pilot hole. So I always exit out and I circle the one that's the one to go into. So, or if you got different colors of chalk, you can X out with red and circle with blue or yellow, whatever, color coordinate, but communicate with your crew, and that way you'll know. So that is a very common mistake, is not marking the pilot hole. And if you drill a pilot hole and you miss, and somebody hollers at you for a tool or where's the what, and and you look away, that thing can disappear with the heat of the day and granules moving in. So it could be tricky. It's easy to miss. So as soon as you put a hole in the roof, mark it and identify it for what it is. Getting into the flashing specifically, I mentioned our Everflash series. We have the eComp kit, which is a pretty standard product I mentioned here. Pretty standard 9x12 flashing, where you slip it in and you bolt it down, and there's a seal built into the flashing with the L-foot, pretty common in the industry. And then we have a slider version of that eComp that has a slide kit, and I believe I have one here. And this is the slide kit, which basically is for shared rail. So this allows you to slide the L foot. Actually have one right here. And this is a little sample kit we provide. If you wanted a sample kit, we send these out pretty often. But this basically goes on to the L foot goes onto the slider bracket and allows you to slide it up and down to where you need to be for shared rail. And we'll talk about that here as we get going further. And then we have our EverFlash, our XP comp. This is kind of the more Cadillac version of our flashings, more on the higher end. So we're finding that, you know, some customers want the most robust, hardcore, you know, bulletproof product that's going to withstand hurricanes. So we design typically an A and a B product, and we have different options. And then there's some guys who don't have really high snow loads and have, you know, no rain at all or something in, you know, parts of Texas, maybe Southern California, and they want to use a more cost-effective product. So we have those different options out there depending on what you want, what features you want in the products when it gets into roof attachments. Getting into tile, I know this is a big topic now for us, especially because we're about to release a whole new series of tile products. If you haven't seen that or you haven't seen any news of that, you can get on to our newsletter. We don't blast you with information all day, every day. It's just product information, news in the industry mainly, big news, and product announcements and what's coming out, or webinar announcements like this. So and all these webinars we do have recorded on our website, so you can go back to that. We do a roofing specific one where I do a deeper dive into this, so feel free to look into this if you're really, really curious about this. I'm just giving you kind of an overview of these roofing topics. So tile products, or tile roofing, I should say, the most common you're going to see out there on the modern tile build outs are concrete. You have flat tile, S tile, and W. Those are the most common concrete tiles that are on more modern homes these days. They're pretty much standard in the industry in roofing now, but you do occasionally see the old traditional clay Spanish cap and barrel tile. Some of them can even be mortared in with concrete. So you really want to do that site visit thoroughly on a tile roof, because this is even more important when it comes to determining what product works best, because there's different style tile hooks that we have that will work for these various roof types. And this goes across the Americas, really. This is common in the US, and a lot of these are in South America, as well as Mexico. It just depends on what the substrate is. So the substrate meaning what's the construction underneath the tile roof. So this is a really good example of what's underneath the tile roof in the US. If you haven't read our latest news, our newsletter, we put out a tile article where I basically gave a little bit of history on this and showed how in the early 80s they used to have, you know, skip sheathing. Like, excuse me, if you look at that bottom left picture there, that's a picture from inside the attic looking out. A classic example of a guy sending me that and saying, what should I do here? Because it's an older roof and it's complicated. They don't build tile roofs like that anymore. In the early 80s, they changed the code because they had so much water intrusion coming in. And so now they're building tile roofs with solid sheathing, like you see in that black and white image over there on the right. That drawing shows solid sheathing plywood, and then underlayment, which is typically like a 30-pound felt paper, or sometimes a synthetic, or in like cases of Florida where there's high wind speeds or hurricane regulations, they will have like a peel-on stick underlayment sometimes. So it's important to know what's under there so you can know what you're working with and what you're going to drill into. And some of them have battens and some of them don't have battens. So you can see that in those images I put on the screen there. So I talk about this more in the news article as well, the newsletter article, and in our tile webinar specific that goes into this. And I do talk about the qualifying the roof on this side. So cracked tiles is something you're going to want to look for, because some roofers are actually aware that some tiles are more fragile than others, and they'll leave extra tiles maybe on the side yard for replacement if they have a couple extra. Or if you have a tile roof and you got some top broken tiles, you might be familiar with going to the tile boneyard and getting a couple that match. Solar installers that do tile jobs, they have tiles in their shop and they bring them because they know that they're going to break tile. Just walking on some of these tiles, if they get a little hairline crack, you might not see it, and then it will bust right when you walk on it. So, and sometimes tiles get dislodged. You know, like I mentioned, some are on battens, some are just nailed directly to the sheathing, and sometimes they become dislodged and move around and crack and corrode, and it can be a little frustrating. So it's really important to look at what's going on in there. Same stuff with the attic, looking in there to see what's the condition of the truss system, or if any flashings or vents or any skylights are leaking or anything like that. And then you can determine how you're going to approach the install. Looking in the valley of a tile roof is actually pretty telling. You can see there's some debris collecting, and you want water to flow out. So I do dive into this more in the webinar that focuses on tile. It gets into this as well, where some jurisdictions, not all, but some are mandating double flashing or flashing at the substrate. So they call it a sub flashing or a primary flashing underneath the tile. So they're saying if you penetrate through the tile and the underlayment, that you have to waterproof both. Not all jurisdictions are mandating this, and the installers that work in these areas, like Bakersfield, I think Fresno, some of them are getting more strict and mandating this, so that you have to either lap the paper over, or you have to 3-course, or use some kind of peel and stick. So these are important things to determine if you're looking to install in these areas, but not all jurisdictions mandate that. Some argue that sealant around the base, excuse me, is enough waterproofing. It's underneath the tiles. They're not going to get so much water directly on it, but some argue that there's a lot of water flow under there. So it's kind of a big debate in the tile world, but you're seeing jurisdictions be either open to using just sealant-based products or seals, and some that are more strict and want you to do more work. And the reason why this is important is because you're trying to bid a job, and you need to know what kind of labor hours you're going to be putting into it. So tile hooks are the most popular in the world, I would say, for tile roofs. The 3S hook in the middle there is a product we have now, and I have right here next to me. Pretty awesome product. This came out of Germany. K2 Germany was using this pretty standard, still is using a product like this. They have a couple different options for these. It's adjustable, which is really cool, actually. You can adjust to the different levels. I believe we're the only hook in the US that has this right now. So you can adjust to the different levels there. There's 3 stages, because different tiles might be thicker, smaller here. So you can adjust and secure it with that bolt in the middle there. And then this one in particular has a return on it, what we show here. And then you would put an L foot on top of that. So a lot of adjustability here, up and down, wherever you need to be. To be totally honest, we were looking at discontinuing this and designing what you see on the screen to the left there, which is our more traditional hook without a return and still has some adjustability. That's a new product that's coming out. I'd say at the end of this quarter. It's still being evaluated for a lot of different things. This is what I would call our Cadillac of all tile hooks. So we have these high performing hooks, and then we have these lower cost, kind of lower, I would say, not so intensely built, because a lot of these tile roofs are in areas that don't have a lot of snow and don't need such robust engineering, and they just need more flexibility. So I'll get into that in a minute, but we have kind of 2 stages of products that we have for high performance hooks and the cost competitive hooks, and I'll get into these here one by one. So the 3L hook is the new one that we're looking at coming out, that has all the features of the 3S minus the return. So we asked our customers and said, should we just discontinue this 3S if you have this 3L hook? And some came back and said, no, please don't discontinue that, because they like the return, they like the L foot, they like the adjustability in it. So if you've never used this product, you can get a sample, try it out, see if it works in your area. Some like the adjustability, some want more of a basic product. On flat tile roofs, you don't need so much, you don't need a base sliding around. So we typically have flat tile hooks that are, I don't have one right here, I apologize for that. It doesn't have a base, it just has this, it just has a straight hook, and you can see the one on the right, that's our strongest flat tile hook. It's shorter, it's thicker. It actually came from the German side, and we brought it over here and changed a couple features based on tile roofs in the US. But that is a really nice product. It's kind of upsloped a little bit so that it takes more deflection. So if you are like flat tile, if they're ever going to install if they're ever going to install tile roofs in a snow area like Colorado, for example, they typically are using flat tile, not so much curved tile like W and S like we showed earlier. So flat tile hooks in those areas need to be stronger. So we're seeing this flat tile hook be really popular in places like Colorado, the Pacific Northwest, that's having more tile but still has snow. So that is these are the 3S hook and the flat tile hook are available now. They have been for the past year or more. These are new products that we're introducing now. So you've got the Universal Standard, which is a 9-inch base, and it's a one-piece welded hook like you see here. Very popular in Southern California and Arizona, where you have a big wide 9-inch base here where you can install this onto the tile roof. You can choose where you want to put the two legs. You can move them around. There's so much flexibility there. And then you have this slight upslope, and then you have the area where you're going to put the rail directly attached to the hook, right? Same T-bolts as our splice there. So realize we're like I said, we're going to focus on this. If we get more time for the other products, I will talk about that, but I wanted to focus mostly on tile. So Universal Standard hook, the two-piece, this is like it says, two-piece. So there's a bolt here that attaches the arm and the base, and that allows you to adjust it to whatever side you need to have that arm thrown out. So if you're hitting the rafter here and you need to swing all the way out here, you can move this hook into this section here. So again, this is going to obviously create more, there's more adjustability, but if you're looking for snow country, you're probably wanting to go more towards a aluminum extruded, beefier, thicker hook. But in places in Southern California, these are the #1 used tile hook that you're seeing in the market. So this is our Universal Standard hook, two-piece, which has a 5.5 base and is adjustable. And then we did come out with a flat tile hook, flat tile X hook, which is basically longer and doesn't have that up sweep on it. So you can do traditional bigger, maybe thinner flat tile roofs. So as I mentioned, there's so many different options. And there's so many different tile roof profiles that now you have a full menu of options with the K2 tile hook series. So definitely let us know if you're interested in this and want to try them out. They're about to come out. We just did a training with the Krannich crew and their sales team, and they're just learning about these, and they will come in, and I would say we're shooting for in the next month or two. We have product in. Some of them have gone out to pilots and being installed already. So all the engineering's in, and all of our data sheets are in as well. So just check with us and check with the reps. This is a brand new product. It's not in stock yet, but we're pulling the trigger here pretty soon. I'm just giving you guys kind of a sneak peek. And then our replacement flashing series is very exciting. These are replacement flashing for concrete tiles. So we have a flat, an S, and a W, and they have a lot of built-in features that allow you to secure the flashing and not have any issues with it popping up on uneven surfaces. I spent a lot of time developing flashings for my past company that I was with, and it was the first flashing like this out there. I was heavily involved in the development of replacement flashings. And basically the idea comes from, vents that are out there in the roofing industry that look like tile, but they're flashings. So same concept for tile hooks, where you can remove the tile, not even have to deal with a broken tile at all, put this flashing in, which laps over on each side, and then it has securement tabs on the side, so you lock it into the tile so you don't have it popping up anywhere. And then on the S and the W, we even built in tabs where you can push back the tab instead of cutting and mangling it. You just push it back where your tile hook comes out, and now you have your tile hook coming out of that built-in tab for the pass-through on the hook. So very friendly product, very easy. We took our time with this, designed it from an installer's perspective, did a lot of work with our local installers in the Southern California area as well as Arizona to dial this in perfectly for what they want. So if you're interested in that, let us know. That is a brand new product and it is coming onto the market in the next couple months. Metal roof solutions, a lot of people don't know that we have a standing seam clamp. We do have the power clamp, which basically grabs onto the standing seam. We've got a 2-pin and a single pin, and then our trapezoidal solution is actually a mini rail, so it goes in between. It basically marries two modules together, east and west, and bridges the gap between two trapezoidal peaks. So if you're interested in these, you can go onto our base tool and you can spec these out and try to design one. If you're not familiar with base, you can work with our sales reps and they can walk you through it. There's a tutorial on our website as well, and you can go through it. You can start to select what you need, what you want, and see where it works. And you can put in the dimensions of like the size of the profile of the standing seam, the distance between them, and it will spec out what is the best one for you. So see there, we have the 2-pin and the single pin. It's the standard and the mini. So the most popular is probably the standard that has the 2-pin in there, but it just depends on the region that you're in. As I mentioned, we probably won't have time for flat roof solutions, but we do have our D-Dome, which is a railless dual tilt or dual pitched system. So it basically, it's typically going east-west. So you get that dual function of each side. You have less ballast with this system because it's a dual tilt. So pretty nice system, very minimal on hardware. It's railless, as you can see. If you're interested in this, we do have a webinar on our website, and we have all kinds of documentation, and you can go through this. We have trainings on this specifically. And we also have our tilt-up system, which is a pretty unique product where a lot of times you have the rail coming out of an array and you're done, and last thing you do, you chop off the end of the rail and you get a big stick or rail hanging off that are extra pieces. This is actually two pieces of the mill and the dark, but I spliced them together. But a lot of times you get a big piece like this and people are just throwing them into the recycle bin, but you can take this now and use it as the back leg for the tilt-up system. So we have different angles, and we have a guide that shows you what size to cut those and have your tilt up, and then you have your front leg. And then you have your rails going across. It's actually where we got the name CrossRail, because a lot of the earlier systems in Europe were doing double rail, so north-south rail and a cross rail across. We don't have that for residential. We eliminated the base rail, but for tilt-up, it works beautifully because you have so much adjustability, and you can use that tilt connector that connects the back leg and the front leg, and you can adjust it where you need to. So a very forgiving system. If you're interested in that, please do check the webinar. We have one that goes over tile products, metal roofs, comp shingle roofs, as well as the tilt-up system and ground mount system. So this is just pointing out that we went single tool about a year ago, so everything can be installed with a 13mm socket and a 1/2-inch. That's a typo there. It says 12-inch, but it's a 1/2-inch socket. If you're installing all these components, you can do it with the same socket you're installing your 5/16 lag going into a comp shingle roof. So pretty common. So these are all the components that are universal across the entire system. We can get to questions here in a minute, but I just want to go through these one by one. So dual rail versus shared rail. So the CrossRail system is across the board. You can use the CrossRail in so many different applications. I mentioned dual rail, which is standard, what you're probably doing now. We have 2 rails going across a whole row of modules, but shared rail actually shares the middle rail. So the bottom row and the top row, 2 rows can share one rail in the middle. So that works great for comp shingle and for standing seam metal, because you have that adjustability north-south. So you can, if you're interested in that, we do have a webinar that goes over that as well. Just giving you the basics here. And then the tilt up, as I mentioned, the ground mount, those are also CrossRail products that use the same components across the board with our mids and our ends. So our mids are probably our most unique feature. They're spring loaded, pre-assembled. Has this little MK3 on here, and basically you put this in, you grab these plastic tabs and you put it into the rail channel and turn this slightly. And what that does is that MK3 is biting into the rail channel underneath there and creating your bonding for UL 2703 compliance. And then you have your mid clamp that's spring loaded, and that's gonna have, standing between the two modules there, and you tighten that down. So what we did in that single tool product update is we made a hex head on the top so that you can have a single tool for the whole system. We also added that cylinder on there so that you have more real estate in the rail and the bolt is not interfering with clearance. So now you can run your wires into the rail channel there, and it gives you more space for running home runs or bundles of wire in there. So if you're wondering about the wire management, we have all kinds of tips and tricks on our website. We have a whole video dedicated to wire management and all the clips we have. The MK3 is there. I just showing you a quick animation of how the complete assembly goes into the rail, which I just showed you on the camera. So very simple, and then there you can see the modules going in and tightening down. So just some animations to show you up close of how the product works. The Yeti clamp is our hidden end clamp. Pretty nice product where you can cut the rail flush with the system and then install this Yeti clamp, which basically grabs the inside frame and allows you to not pinch any glass on the top, and allows you to cut the rail flush and have more of a aesthetic look. So these are used interchangeably. You can use, if you run out of one clamp on the end clamp, you can use a standard or the Yeti clamp. I've seen a lot of guys just intermix these, or the side that shows, to the street, or the homeowner sees it every day on the side there. You can cut that flush and install that, and you can actually use this little rail sleeve that we have too. This is just a little sleeve that caps over the rail. So if you're if you've got the rail showing and it's mill and you want to tuck it in, instead of spray painting it, you can actually put this on, and that kind of blends it in and kind of camouflages the rail there. Microinverter optimizer mounting kit, pretty standard, uses the MK3, goes into the rail channel, allows you to attach a optimizer or a microinverter to the rail. And then wire management solutions, we have the new TC wire clip is a really nice product. So if you're jumping wires to the next row or jumping out to make your connections and lock it into the side of the rail like you see there, you can use the Omega clip for that, or the Hay clip. And then a TC wire management clip allows you to keep it into the rail, so when they're transitioning out, you keep it nice and tight and it doesn't drag onto the roof. Our rail connectors are splice. We call it a rail connector because that's what it's doing. It's connecting two rails. So this is a good example here. And this uses the same T-bolts that connect to the alpha to the rail. So so that's minimizes the hardware. It's not using a self-tapping screw, which makes it more robust and strong. So you're not so beholden to cantilever rules where you have to be 2 mounts back or whatnot. You can install this rail connector in pretty much any spot on the array, depending on your snow load and whatnot. So there's times where you need to extend the rail towards the end of the array, and this is strong enough to do that in most cases. The ground mount, Everest ground lug is basically just a MK3 built into a ground lug that goes into the top channel. Really simple, easy, cost effective, and allows you to run your copper wire under the system if you're wanting to do that. If you're using shared rail, you would use the 10.3, which goes into the side, because if you're sharing the rail, you're pretty much taking up all the real estate on the rail across the entire rail as a whole. So again, we do these webinars that show you what the difference is between shared and dual rail. If you're interested in this, we can run through this with you. The only additional part is when you're putting in this same mid clamp. So if you ever are doing a shared rail and you want to, maybe you need to do one row that's just regular dual rail, you just use the same mids clamps and it doesn't matter. The only additional part to use it as a shared rail is this little, we call it an add-on, and that's basically so that you can have a nice flush shelf for you here to split the rail for 2 modules. So that gives you kind of a nice shelf, and it determines your spacing between the modules. So that's the only additional part. If you're on standing seam roof, the standing seam clamp works as a slider, same as you would do as dual rail. But on the comp shingle roof, you need that adjustability. So as I mentioned, we have that slider kit version of our e-comp. So those are the only additional parts. You can see it saves you a lot of penetration, saves you a lot of rail. If you are interested in this and you haven't done CrossRail ever, I highly recommend, we recommend that you do dual rail first so you get familiar with components, and then design a simple shared rail that it's a small job, you want to try it out. We'll assist you in this and help. Then you might want to use shared rail on a bigger job and try different, more complicated arrays. You can always design it in the design software tool, and it will tell you how many components you need, and you can see where it might make sense. It might save you some time and labor and materials. But I would start with dual rail, get familiar with all the components, then start small with a smaller system on shared rail, and then start graduating to bigger systems, and then start doing both and see where it makes sense for you. If you're in the Midwest and you're doing standing seam, you can interchangeably use these systems and see which ones work best for you in different areas. But again, for tile, you're always going to use the dual rail cross rail function and our tile mounts. I mentioned the tilt up system. That's just an up close of the tilt up connectors and where they go. As I mentioned, we do webinars on these specifically, so feel free to sign up for those or watch the recorded version. We also have a ground mount version, and we are making updates to the ground mount, so you'll see that in the next probably a couple months. We did some updates to them, so if you're doing ground mount and you want to use this, let us know and we can help there. The nice thing, as I mentioned, is the components go for, they're interchangeable. Mid clamps can be used in all of these different profiles, whether you're using metal roofs or you're doing the tilt-up systems. So these are just slides going more in detail on these specific systems. So again, if you're interested in learning about the Mini Rail Express, how to properly install these, we do a deep dive into this and where there's common mistakes, where there's quick tips to install it faster, how to design it. So let us know, and the base tool is a part of that, giving you those dimensions. So if you do have questions, let us know. I don't see any thrown in there, so I'll assume we did a good job. But if you do have questions, you can always contact us. Basecamp is our hub for product resources, so that's where you'll find the videos. We're doing a lot more videos these days, technical tips and tricks, recorded webinars, videos, as I mentioned, install videos, product videos. There's downloads there as well, and updates on new webinars coming up and new videos coming out. So we do a lot of these, and we're doing a lot of new product development. So you're going to start seeing more stuff come out. I highly recommend getting on our newsletter so that you can get those updates. But other than that, there's our contact info. There's my contact info. You can always reach out to me via email or phone, and I can help answer any of these questions. And if there's any of this that I went over maybe too fast, because I know it's a pretty short time period, only 1 hour to give you a deep dive into roofing best practices, mounting, and the CrossRail system platform, we can do webinars custom for your crew, and depending on when you want to do that, just let us know. We can coordinate that and schedule this, and we can tailor it specifically to the roof type and the products that you're using. So reach out, let us know. I manage all the technical training, but we appreciate you joining. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me directly or any of our outside sales reps. So